Right off the bat, I need to mention this before I get cancelled. I really like BookTok. I enjoy spending time there. It's a great place for readers and writers to connect on TikTok, and I've thoroughly enjoyed my time on there for the past 18 months or so. However, I am very prone to critiquing things. Who am I to not critique social media? My name is Amy Rosenfeld, and today we are dissing BookTok. Sorry? BookTok has its highs, but especially on checking that branch of the app for the first time, it has its lows, and it takes quite a long time to find these highs. And when you get on there, you can truly realize how low the lows can go. Homogeny is the main root of them all. There, I said it. That's what I hate about BookTok, homogeny. You can go and get off the video. No, wait, don't actually. If you are still curious and you want me to break this down a little bit more, I guess I can spare you a few minutes. Here are my 7 things that I don't like as much about BookTok. Number 1, straight cis white novels dominate. Though it's the same in any industry, it is still a fact that sucks ass. Homogeny is not for me, so go away. But you'd think that TikTok being run by the woke generation of Gen Z, that they would be more willing to both investigate these non-straight cis white books and promote them a lot more. That their taste in books would reflect their woke stereotypes. When you first jump onto TikTok, that is not the case. It took me literally 10 months to be able to properly diversify the kinds of content and the kinds of books that were appearing on my TikTok For You page. I am so glad that it managed to change, but I could fill buckets with the sweat that it took me to get my For You page looking like that. To get an algorithm that better reflected my thoughts and the thoughts that I thought everybody shared. But this is almost equally at the fault of the publishing industry as well. The HarperCollins strikes, while being a strike about many of the things that were wrong with the publishing industry, had stuff about this homogeneous domination as part of it as well. And only recently, and because of this strike, do I see more people wanting to take action surrounding this. Either that, or I just like the people on my For You page a little bit better. Number 2, the BookTok Duopoly. When you first get onto BookTok, you are likely going to see 2 authors' works recommended to you from the get-go. Colleen Hoover and Sarah J. Maas. Both problematic authors, but half the world doesn't even realize it.
Quick message from Editing Amy. I realized that I forgot to mention why Hoover and Maas are both respectively problematic. Hoover has had some issues with romanticizing abuse, especially when a book that she had written about abusive relationships was almost literally this close from being turned into an adult coloring book. That, and also some of her works mention a mother saying pedophilic type stuff to her child, so that's a bit weird. And Sarah J. Maas has had some issues surrounding her representation of minorities. I don't know the full extent of this, but I know at least one thing is a character of color getting fridged. Fridging being a phrase which means somebody gets killed to further the main character's development, and that is their only purpose. And that's just the stuff that I know. I can't speak for the kind of problematic stuff Maas has written from not having read her works and not being a person of color, as I think off the top of my head, those are the people who have been the worst affected by Maas's representation. This has been a message from Editing Amy.
I thought it was bad enough with J.K. Rowling being one of the more problematic female authors, but no! We have a trinity of problematic female authors now. It's kind of hilarious because on BookTok, a lot of people on there say they will never ever read a book by a straight cis white man. The straight cis white females are still doing bad stuff, and there's probably a bunch of other people who are still doing bad stuff as well in terms of what they're writing. Speaking of which, someone on BookTok ended up hating people who won't read Sarah J. Maas's works because of them being problematic. Like, That's got to be some kind of elitist bullshit going on in their heads. That person had to be brainwashed along with a lot of people on BookTok. What makes it annoying was how long it took to find the content that pushed back against those Sarah J. Maas and Colleen Hoover books and the people not realizing how problematic they were. That their books are among the first that you must read before officially calling yourself a book lover. Now, that was what the algorithm was saying when I first started. I don't know quite what it's like now, because of course my algorithm has changed immensely, but I seriously hope that it has changed since August 2021. Number 3, an excess of Big Five books. I'm not even sure this has been expressed in the public eye again until the HarperCollins strikes. And in further discussions on BookTok sparked up by the controversial opinion that indie authors aren't real authors. Quite often, the books that you end up finding on BookTok are all the big books that you find in bookstores. Who holds the reign on these bookstores? Publishing houses, particularly the Big Five publishers. Penguin Random House, Hachette, HarperCollins, Macmillan, Simon & Schuster. And quite often these houses have very particular ways and messages that they want to share off into the world. They are going to force authors to make changes to their books to better suit their vision. Reading books by only Big Five authors is comparably as bad as someone who only watches movies produced by Disney and the many companies that Disney holds. I went through every single book on my shelves to try and find out what their publishing houses were. And sadly, over 70% of the books that I own are Big Five, or owned by the Big Five. So that's a problem I also have to fix, and I don't think BookTok is helping. Especially considering I am an indie author myself. I should really, reap what I sow. It is now more crucial than ever for me and you to be able to not only recommend books that aren't Big Five, but making sure we represent the small publishing houses and the indie publishing houses in the grand scheme of things. Both by promoting those kinds of books and making sure we are finding and reading them ourselves. I'm gonna start off by recommending one publishing house to you, Orbit Books. This is a perfect publishing house for fantasy and sci-fi fans because every single book so far that I have picked up that is published by Orbit, I have loved to pieces. I'm literally gonna go through every Orbit series I have now. The Milkweed Triptych, The Indran in War, The Dragon Lords, you must read this one, I'm begging you, and Empire of Storms. I really need to get more Orbit books on my shelves because that is a small publishing house that I really enjoy the content of thus far. Number 4, A Smutty Entrance. Along with the 2 authors I mentioned previously, you're probably gonna find one thing. Smut! Sexual intercourse in your book's a thing you like? Then you're gonna love coming onto BookTok. You're gonna see everybody on BookTok joke about how dirty the books on there are. If you don't like reading smut and you're kind of prudy, like me, it's gonna take a while for you to get out of the smut cloud. I personally don't have anything against reading smut. People can read whatever kind of content that they want. But if anything assured me that I was asexual, it was the fact that everybody on BookTok when I first went on there loved smut. Not saying that all asexuals hate smut though, but it would be really nice if less books, adult books especially, would be less smutty on BookTok. It would make the platform that much more accessible, really. This is very much dictating how people are supposed to feel. Because even for people who are not asexual, they may have some kind of religious ties to sex, and therefore reading smut would go against that. Or they just think sex is far more of a personal thing. I don't know. I'm asexual. Sex isn't everything that makes a book good. Lessons from an asexual. Number 5, the female author domination. I'm a feminist, not a feminazi, so I'm out here wondering why there are less books recommended by male authors than there are female authors. This could again be some kind of reflection of the publishing industry, but there definitely seems to be some kind of sexism going on here. Which is ironic considering historically, writing was a very male-dominated industry. This is a video topic that I do eventually want to research and address in, you know, its own video. But we're just talking about book talk, and it is kind of a problem for me. Males can write good books too, guys. I want to shout this out to the world, but I know I'm gonna get backlash because you know how historically problematic male authors can be. I said can be, not are. Am I seriously using a not all men statement here? I feel so weird now. But yeah, maybe we should also be representing, you know, authors of other genders as well, more than just females. Number 6, problematic trends among faves. That book is a problem, book is a problem, book is a problem, goddamn problem. I have already mentioned Hoover and Moss as problematic authors, but I think they are just two branches of a very expansive tree. Because of the other authors on there that have their problematic sides, like Rowling and Claire and other authors and their books that I can't quite remember. Or maybe I don't want to remember because of how problematic they are. And it is in spite of these issues that are being presented that people still broadcast books by these problematic authors as their favorites. Or that people are doubting this problematic content or are calling us sensitive or woke. Do people just not have the critical analysis that we were taught to have in high school? No joke. I had A Court of Thorns and Roses, the first famed book of Sarah J. Maas's, on my TBR. Like a couple of years ago. And then I found out that it was full of problematic content, particularly in relation to race. To this date, it is the only book that I had on my TBR and never read. Never picked it up, never looked at the first page. I just bought it after looking at the blurb, thinking it was cool, and then found out it was problematic and it was gone. I could not keep a clean conscience with that book on my shelves. There have been other moments where people say that the content in a particular book I'm about to read is problematic, and then I read it and agree to some sort of degree, and it definitely ruins my reading experience, at least partially. From what I've heard about Maas's content and the magnitude of how popular it is revolting. And not Matilda levels of revolting, but I will revolt about the problems being portrayed in these kinds of books. Number 7, shock factor. This might be the biggest problem I have. It's that good and quality books are being overlooked by books that are shocking. Books that procure shocking reactions. Which is kind of why the problematic books, I guess, are so popular. It seems that publishers are taking notice too of this trend, and they are making sure that shock factor is an important part of the books that they publish, leading them to neglect other quality parts of the writing process. I do plan to also make a video on this in the future, but shock should not be a crutch when writing your books. Colleen Hoover, Sarah J. Maas, Victoria Aveyard, and Cassandra Clare are among the most shock-procuring authors. Along with books like They Both Die at the End, which is marketed often as a book that will make you cry. It seems people appreciate that a lot more on the platform than they do quality narratives, characters that they can relate to, or just uplifting emotions and positive sorts of feelings. Although cozy fantasy, that's taken a bit of a boom lately. So that's a promising way to combat it. What I'm saying is that this creates unreliable spaces for people who want to do more than just get shocked. I have felt that way about every BookTok book that I have read except like 2. And one had the shock factor, but still with fantastic story building and world building, that it was a very good reading experience for me. But a lot of the other books, they had like something shocking in it, but nothing else in there for me to really keep going. Or the shocks were just absolutely pathetic. And those are ultimately the reasons why I am losing my trust in BookTok. But we shall see. In August, I will have spent 2 years consuming and creating content on BookTok. And I still have to read all of these books that the app has made me buy. So maybe by August, I will have developed more of a conclusion as to whether or not I trust the app. So there you have it. That is a heartfelt critique on the BookTok platform. I will still continue to be putting more content on there, but I will be thoroughly analyzing a lot more of the content that will be both presented to me and that I will be putting on there to see if it's someplace that I am truly gonna stay. If you did enjoy this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you are new around here. You can ring that bell to find out when I post more creative content. ASTER'S CODA Exposure, my own book, is available for you to buy in the description. Follow Abby Tacker as she dives into the 3 worlds and learns her place in it in the midst of an otherworldly blood feud. And while you're in the description, you can go and follow me on my TikTok, as well as my Instagram and my website. Stay creative, everybody, and I'll be seeing you in the next video.